Production funding for After Abbey on WPSU comes from Caparella Furniture, serving the area with furniture, flooring, and home decorating ideas for more than 60 years, with locations in Bellefonte and Lewistown. Information at caparella.com. And from Confers Jewelers on the Diamond in Victorian Bellefonte, a family and staff dedicated to bringing a taste of luxury and beauty to yours. And from viewers like you, thank you.
Good evening and welcome to the season finale of After Abbey, the live post-Downton Abbey interactive talk show where we invite you to discuss all things Downton with us. I'm Whitney Sheridan along with my fellow producers and co-hosts Jessica Peters and Lindsay Whistle. And joining us in the studio this evening is Janet Lyon, Penn State Associate Professor of English, Women's Studies, and Science, Technology, and Society. An editor of the Journal of Modern Literature, she studies modernism, especially in Ireland, Great Britain, and the British Empire. We are anxious to get her take on Season 3, especially tonight's finale of Downton, and yours as well. You can call us to be a part of the conversation right now at 1-800-543-8242. You can also email us. Our address is afterabbey@wpsu.org. Visit us on Facebook at facebook.com/AfterAbbeyTV, or reach us on Twitter, and our address is @AfterAbbey. We always welcome your correspondence. Well, Janet, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
I'm delighted to be here.
It was a dramatic finale. I'm sure that our audience felt the drama as well. Shocking turn of events, but we really want to talk about a lot of the historic events that have, been circulating in the background of Downton. One of the great things about the show is that it's set in the 1920s, and it started out in 1912.
Right.
So
with the Titanic.
Exactly. Tell us a little bit about, your
This
take
period.
on everything.
Well, it's an interesting moment in British history because it's the end of the Victorian era, 1906-ish, and this is called the Edwardian era that we're in with this show, which is a time of tremendous transition, and the old guard is sort of hanging on with their last breath. The House of Lords was sort of defanged in 1910, so the aristocracy is tumbling in terms of political power. These wonderful country houses are starting to be too expensive for anybody to afford. After World War I, the taxes went way up on these country houses, and a lot of the labor that had been used to staff the houses disappeared with the war. Either they went to war and didn't come back, or they found jobs in munitions factories. So in other words, the labor itself is shrinking, and the houses themselves are really, really difficult to maintain. So it's fascinating this is also a time of political expansion. The suffragette movement is going on. There's very, very violent miners' strikes going on in the South. Of course, Downton Abbey is up in Yorkshire, which is in the northeast coast of England. But it's a time of tremendous unrest. Northern Ireland is very violent in their efforts to retain the whole island, and I love that there's an Irishman in this plot, although I'm surprised that more wasn't made of that.
Exactly. That's one of the things that surprises me the most. They portray it more as, a personal experience for him, and less of, a world event or social or political event, like they do with World War I.
Right. Yeah, there's very little echo of the Troubles, as they were called, which is surprising, and because Ireland goes into its revolutionary moment in Easter Rising is 1916, and the full-on revolution is in 1920, and then the Civil War, after they finally get their freedom, there's this huge civil war that turns people against each other in Ireland. And there's a little whiff of it in here, but I'm wondering if that's going to come back. I mean, I think that we'll be seeing more of Tom.
Well, we hope so.
Yes, we certainly do hope so.
We do hope so.
We were wondering, was it realistic how they let Tom kind of off the hook? I know that Lord Grantham had to pull some strings, but do you think he would have gotten away with his indiscretions?
With what? Wait,
well, the burning of the aristocrat's house. He was part of that uprising.
Oh, was he?
And that brought him, him and Sybil.
Right.
They fled Ireland.
Right. That was very lightly done. So that would have been they burned a lot of the big houses. In Ireland, these country houses are called big houses.
Oh.
And it's the same setup, but it's typically absentee English landlords who own land in Ireland. They basically appropriated all the land of Ireland and the 17th century. So the burning of the big houses in Ireland was really the burning of the English houses.
Right.
It's the burning of the occupier. So it's surprising that more wouldn't have been made of that.
Yeah, it seemed like he was let off a little too easily.
Yeah.
Well, we do have a call right now, which is fantastic, and we want more folks to call in at 1-800-543-8242 because so much has happened this evening. Sandy from Crescent, welcome to After Abbey.
Thank you.
And did you have a question or comment for tonight's show?
Yeah, I can't believe Julia Fellows looks like he's going to write off Matthew after everything Matthew and Mary's been through, and that I can't believe it. I mean, I'm a diehard Downton Abbey fan, but if Matthew dies, I probably won't watch the show anymore.
Oh.
Really?
You've got to see what happens now, though. That's
Really?
the thing. You've got to see what happens.
Yeah.
I think it'll be really interesting to see how they continue. You know.
Yeah, I mean, because I've been rooting for those two from the very beginning, and if he's killed off, I'm just going to be very upset, and I probably won't watch.
No, you can't abandon this baby.
There are a lot of people on Twitter that are saying already how upset they are about this, and I think we're right there with you, Sandy. And Dan Stevens, the actor who plays Matthew, he actually did an interview with the Telegraph in England, and we posted the link to our Twitter and Facebook page if you're following us on there about his decisions about why he was leaving. It was his idea to leave, so no hate mail to Julian Fellows. But yeah, so it is sad. It was quite a shocking way to end that episode tonight.
Yeah.
Well, you know, he's been a huge character in the show. You know, a driving force of the estate and recovering the Downton, of course. You know, as the heir, but. You know, he really hasn't been driving the full saga forward. So I'm curious to see what will be the next big plot line. I mean,
it's interesting that he said, or she says, the heir is here. It's done.
Right.
When she finally has a boy. So, you know, one wonders if then that isn't going to get complicated because if she, you know, we've heard talk of maybe a boyfriend in the next series, and if there's a, you know, what's going to happen with the baby and with the line of, you know, descendants and so forth.
That's a good point.
And speaking surely on the dramatic end, I mean, their relationship has leveled off. I think once they got married, we kind of lost that wonderful Matthew-Mary tension. The
Will
will
they,
they, won't they?
Yeah.
I mean, they can still fight, but
you're exactly right.
We know I was the biggest Mary Matthew fan. I'm quite upset.
Now it's just marital troubles. So,
and one of the great things about Downton Abbey has been the fact that, you know, the women of Downton aren't accessories to these men.
This is what first drew me to this. I mean, I'm in love with the costumes and the sets and so forth, and it's the period that I know a lot about, but tell me another television show that has such an amazing cast of women, and they're not accessories, and they're not, you know, there's not like one.
and you know, they bring up,
fantastic.
You know, issues that they would have been discussing, I think, during the day about, you know, they can't vote until they're 30 years old. But what are some of the other issues that, you know, Edith and Mary might have been discussing,
Sybil.
say? And
Bless
so,
her heart.
fighting for the vote. What are some of the other issues that they might have been thinking about?
One of the things that struck me is this, and I must say I've been loving Edith's character more and more since the beginning. She has really developed into a very sympathetic character. It's interesting that she's now a journalist. This is an area that women were trying really hard to move into. There were some wonderful women journalists. Rebecca West was one of them. She was a suffragette, and she was kind of a firebrand journalist, nothing like Edith. But this sense that one's voice as a woman is suddenly, or, you know, over time has finally become something legitimate in the public sphere, I think is really well done. And even her own surprise whenever she's like, I think I'm a journalist now.
Would she have actually been able, or many women able to write in their own name? Because I know it wasn't uncommon for women to use a pseudonym that was a man's name.
No, well, Rebecca West, for example, that's actually not her, that was a pen name of hers. But with the rise of the suffragette movement, a lot of women were writing letters and editing journals and so forth with the pro-vote bent to it. So I would say it's more in the 19th century that you get people like, George Eliot and so forth writing under male pseudonyms, but it does begin, everything changes so much in this period, which is why I love it so much. And the literature that's coming out of this moment is really extraordinary, too.
And it's so neat to see as, Edith's going after this position, and we saw in season 1 where Sybil was helping Gwen get a secretarial position.
That's the typewriter up on the cover.
What I'm wondering is, as far as a class issue and pursuing other positions that normally wouldn't have gone to a woman, what was it like then? Well,
you are seeing this sort of the rise of the women clerical class, and you're absolutely right. There wouldn't have been any, but with the typewriter and women learning technology that would not have been available to them before, a lot of these ideas of the independent new woman came from the fact that women were teaching themselves the new technologies, and they were writing, and they were not just writing for themselves, they were writing for journals and publications, and then they were also doing novels.
How did what was happening in Britain parallel what was happening in the U.S. in terms of the suffragists?
The suffrage? Well, it's an interesting, they're not exactly the same kinds of things. In England, and the English suffragists kind of looked with admiration at the American suffragists, and they looked in turn kind of with admiration at the English suffragists. But this English suffragists had an amazing, violent phase. The militant suffrage movement really broke out around 1912, actually, was the first day that they did one of their mass violent things. And what they did was, and they all were sort of dressed as just like women shopping in the West End, and hundreds of them went out shopping. And at 5 o'clock, I think, the clock struck a certain hour, and they all took little hammers out of their handbags and smashed windows at once. And all the windows in the West End came down, and they just put the hammers back in their bags and kept walking. It was just, these were, acts of sort of civil disobedience that were against property, never against people.
Well, we've got a lot of calls coming in, which is fantastic. So, Judy from Johnstown, welcome to After Abbey.
Thank you.
And do you have a question for us?
It's more of a comment, and it goes along with what you're discussing now. I think there was a mistake killing off Matthew, and I realize he has a personal life. But it would have added a lot more dimension to the intrigue and the sexuality and the tension in the marriage, because women were finding their place in the world, and women were allowed to be free to explore whatever was out there other than tea parties and, banquets and dances. And I think not having Matthew, I think that was sad. And I kind of feel the same way. I don't even know whether I'm going to continue to watch it.
Aww.
I mean, I know there's other development of characters, but that would have been such a wonderful, marvelous storyline. I mean, couldn't they bring someone else on that looks like Matthew, kind of like they did on the Waltons with John Boy or something? Because that would have just really added the dimension to the female audience especially during that time period, what was coming on historically with the women's right to vote and with the women's realizing they can be educated other than just being around these big manors, and they knew that they could become journalists, and they really became empowered.
And Matthew himself was such a supporter of everything that Edith was doing. He stood up for her when Robert was putting her down and saying that she shouldn't pursue this journalism career. So you're right on point there. But it will be interesting to see what does happen for Mary, and now that she has the baby, and what's going to happen there.
Exactly.
So,
well, we also have Carol from Somerset on the line. Carol, welcome to After Abbey. How are you?
Good. Good evening.
Good evening. Do you have a question?
Oh, I just have a comment.
Okay.
I will always watch Downton Abbey, by the way. And we do have this, us girls have this fantasy thing where we would like to see that the prince and the princess make it out and are happily ever after. It's true. But by the same token, there is reality to life. My thought was, I guess I want to say, the very idea now that Branson is the man, the next man in the house, it seems as though we kind of questioned, was Rose going to be someone for Branson? Or, as Branson and Edith walked down the hallway, could those two possibly get together? But then, after all of this going on with Mary, good heavens, if the two of them got together, the children would be like half sister and brother then. We'll wait to see just what's going to go on.
Carol, you've got to send these ideas over to Rebecca Eaton. Wow, you could be writing for Downton, I think.
Right. You're right.
Well, thank you so much for your call this evening.
Thank you.
And we also have Joanne from State College. Welcome to After Abbey. Hi, Joanne.
Hello. This is fun.
Thank you. Do you have a question?
Well, I also have a comment, like the previous caller, and actually she added a new dimension to it because I didn't even think about Rose.
Right.
But Edith and Thomas, I think, will add some dimension because of the tension between Mary and Edith.
Right.
And I think that both of them are such intelligent characters that they will bring the historical perspective and the challenges of the new century to bear on the house and everything else. So even if they don't get together, it'll be interesting dialogue, I'm sure, and challenging the status quo in the family and also the times. So that's all I wanted to say.
Well, thank you so much,
Does
Joanne.
nobody think that Edith is going to stay with the editor? Or is that a done deal? Because
I'm not sure.
Well, she goes to London.
Matthew was sort of, he gave that other man his walking papers, basically, the way I saw it, And now that has happened, Edith has to think about what she's going to do next, and she also may rise to matriarch in the family. Who knows?
Well, that's kind of an interesting point, too, that Matthew stepped in on Edith's behalf to kind of quell the romance. And really, I mean, it's Edith's choice, but the fact that the men in her life are sort of handling
as they did with her first marriage.
Exactly.
Her first attempt at marriage.
That's true, but I always feel like Edith is very bold in making advances towards the men in her life.
She likes a man, she lets him know. Yeah.
Right, and I wonder, would that have been the case then, and how much does her social status play into it?
This is one of the dimensions of the show that we haven't touched on, but I mean, there's very, very rigid class distinctions, and so what holds for middle-class women who want to move into the professions is completely off limits for aristocratic women, unless there's a whole stratum of eccentric aristocrats. There's Lady Adeline Morell, who had one of these big houses in Oxford, and had wore dyed her hair brilliant red and wore like Shakespearean rags and had huge salons and parties for artists, right? So you were allowed to be an eccentric if you were an aristocrat, but you were not allowed to be a bourgeois, like ruddy-faced homeholder in the suburbs. So what we're also looking at is Edith crossing a kind of class line here, and with Sybil running off with an Irish chauffeur. I mean, that's an extraordinary line crossing going on.
Would that have happened, do you think?
I'm not sure. That actually doesn't seem terribly realistic to me.
And I was surprised by the lack of, really, she really didn't get much public censure. Yeah. And from obviously the public, and also from the family. Right. They were pretty accepting.
Right. Well, she had this wonderful way of making change available to the family. Remember when she went to Paris and she came back with that amazing outfit? She was wearing that like harem pants and her diadem and stuff. She was like fabulous. She'd gone right to Poirot, who was dressing all of the wonderfully fashionable women of Paris at the time. So they were shocked, and yet it was Sybil. There's something quite lovely about the way that Sybil, she was never like, mean about her demands for being new. So perhaps she was very persuasive.
Well, and speaking of these, the pregnant women on Downton this year, we have a person on Facebook would like to know, was the portrayal of pregnant women out in society, like Mary was tonight, how she made that comment about it's not 1850 anymore or anything. Yeah. Is that accurate to this era?
I would say that, that I mean, it's still a guarded topic. It's still nothing that anybody talks about, sort of, in in public in the way that we do now, but certainly far less. The confinement is what it was called, where you just sort of stayed in the house after you were 6 months pregnant, is far less. And partly that's due to, you noticed even over the course of this show, the corset goes away, right? Mm-hmm. The corset as the sort of mainstay of women's dress, it's right around this time, right around 1906, that the corset starts to disappear, and so you can actually be pregnant in public without having, you know, to choke the fetus with your corset.
Wow. Well, we've got so many folks on the line right now that we're excited to get to those calls, but if you're just joining us, this is After Abbey, the live post-Downton Abbey interactive talk show, and we invite your correspondence. Please call us at 1-800-543-8242. Email questions and comments to afterabby@wpsu.org. And join the discussion on Twitter. The address is @AfterAbbey, or send us a note on Facebook. Our fan page is facebook.com/AfterAbbeyTV. And Jessica over here is checking everything, so she's waiting for you to participate. We're going to be back to calls in just a minute, but I want to let you know that this local program and programs like Downton Abbey are brought to you by viewers like you, and we have a special message from our membership director, Pat Smith. We'll be back in a few seconds, I promise, but we're going to get to some calls, so keep those calls coming in. Here's Pat Smith.
Thank you, Whitney, and good evening. It's my pleasure to be with all of you here tonight. I'm Patrick Smith, membership director for WPSU, and I'm here as you are a huge fan of Downton Abbey and also a fan of After Abbey, both of which I kind of love for different reasons. Downton Abbey, a global phenomenon, incredible storytelling, a great opportunity to look at a life and a time and a style of drama that is so terribly, terribly uncommon on television today. And then After Abbey, an opportunity for my colleagues and many of us here at the studio to kind of reach out and talk to each of you and get your thoughts and your input and what it is you love and what it is you worry about when you see these characters on this show. The global phenomena, the local broadcast, a great evening's worth of television for each and every one of us. However, like everything that we do on this station, all this television comes with a cost. An episode of Masterpiece, 1 hour of Masterpiece throughout the year, well, that costs this station about $1,300. After Abbey, it's a local production, but still, we have to light the studio, we have electricity to buy, we have cameras to maintain, we have bills to pay, and so every episode of After Abbey, as delightful as they are and as good as it's to see my colleagues on the air, still costs this station some money. So I come to you now with just a brief reminder that this is a fundraising weekend, and we look forward to having your support for both Downton Abbey and After Abbey at 1-800-245-9779 or online at WPSU.org, and thank you.
We want to thank everyone who's been calling in tonight. We've gotten so many calls already, and there are more in the queue. And right now, Paul from Altoona, welcome to After Abbey. Do you have a question or comment? Hi, Paul. Are you there? We might have lost Paul, unfortunately, which would have been, you know, a great gentleman's opinion that we would have had. Let's go to Amanda from Clarion. Amanda, welcome to After Abbey.
Hello.
Hi, Amanda. Do you have a question or comment?
I have a wonderful comment. So I think that the show is very intriguing, first off. Me being a history major, my mother got me fascinated with the show, and I've been hooked on it ever since. I just thought it was kind of interesting, like, the switch. I feel like this season was, like, a lot of, like there's a lot of suffering in this season. Just the fact of, like, losing Sybil and then losing Matthew at the very end tonight.
Yeah,
definitely. I just found it compelling, definitely compelling. Yeah. And I heard a lot of people saying that they won't watch it. But,
that was my question for you. Are you going to continue?
Oh, I'm going to continue. I feel like there's something that's going to happen that's just going to get us all to still love Downton Abbey, because it's such a great series, and I don't think it should be, you know, cast aside. I think people should stick in there. And Matthew's one of my favorites, so it kills me already, but...
They'll change their mind. You just wait.
Maybe we'll meet someone new that we love just as much, so...
Yeah, I'm hoping. I mean, like, I love how Faith is out of jail now, and, like, the conflict between, you know,
Thomas
Amy
and Bates,
him. Like, I just love them so much. And they have such, like, a powerful romance, and I feel like that is going to help us get over the fact that you know, Matthew is gone.
If we all just stick together and we breathe.
That's right.
We will all make it through.
I know there were many tearjerker moments tonight. I've watched it, a couple times now. And the scene where Anna's dancing, and Bates is watching her. Just gets it.
I love the little crinkles he gets in his eyes when he's looking at her. He smiles.
I have my box of Kleenexes right beside me, and I was bawling my eyes out the whole time.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for calling. We've also got Karen from Ansonville on the line. Karen, do you have a question or comment?
Yes, I just wanted to mention that Downton Abbey is comparable to like The Bold and the Beautiful on daytime, and it just moves so well that you can never get too hung up on an emotion. It just takes you into another scene, and you're there and experiencing what's happening now. It's just really nice and fast, and I don't think I'll be too heartbroken for too long over that fella getting in a car wreck.
And how do you think you're going to be able to wait until next season? It's going to be probably January.
Is it really?
It's a long wait.
That's simply unfair.
Maybe I can get some tapes and have a...
Well, we're going to actually have a marathon on WPSU of Season 3 on March 10th, Sunday, March 10th, starting at noon, which... Every time I watch another one of these episodes again, and we all talk about this all the time, you pick up so many of the great lines by Dame Maggie Smith, the Dowager. So everybody should definitely tune in for that, because it'll be great.
Even Maggie Smith, the Dowager's last lines in this episode, we were just saying, it's as he's dying, she's saying, well, we've finally gotten through this year, and we've had a lot of pain, but everybody's safe and sound.
That's right. That's right.
Not so much.
Well, we actually have a clip that we have our Dowager on display.
Oh, great.
Which we have a recurring segment here on After Abbey. And it's a little more of an uplifting moment. We've been talking a lot about the loss of Matthew and, of course, the loss of Sybil. But this one comes from one of the more comedic moments in tonight's episode of Downton, which was with Mosley, which we love. And we'll look at the Dowager's comments as Mosley's dancing. So let's take a look.
They do say there's a wild man inside all of us.
If only he would stay inside.
Very quick, but I feel like she steals that scene.
Zingers.
Hands down, that was my favorite moment of the whole season, was to see Mosley dance around like that. I don't know. Mosley's been that character that we just love to laugh at. And I just love that scene. Every time I watch it, it makes me laugh.
It does. It definitely does. And I'm excited to see where all of these characters go. Yeah. Especially one of them is who we were talking about earlier, is Lady Edith.
Right.
I've got to say I wasn't too fond of her from the beginning.
She was not likable.
Definitely not that likable, but now she's really growing on me.
Yeah.
And I think I definitely think she's pursuing the career as a journalist. Yeah. She doesn't seem to be that caught up after she's been jilted about the marriage thing.
Right.
So
well, there was that wonderful moment, I can't remember, it must have been the World War I stuff was last season, right? So, when she sort of comes into her own, when the officers are in the house with, going around with books and sort of taking care of people, and I think this is the moment when she realizes that she doesn't have to be a sheltered, aristocratic middle daughter, but can actually be in the wider world. Yeah. That was a lovely moment.
The evolving role I'm curious to see is Mary, now that she's a widow, because if you look at the Dowager and her sassiness, or even you look at Isabel, it almost seems like the women who are widows have this extra freedom that some of the other women don't enjoy.
Interesting.
So do you
that's
think
an
that?
Interesting point. Do
you think that's true, and do you think that Mary will kind of come into that now that sadly Matthew is out of the picture?
I have no idea about that. It's a really interesting observation, though. I love those two grandmothers.
Well, one thing about it
and
is
Shirley MacLaine too.
I know. Well, I was going to ask. You know, Shirley MacLaine. I don't know why it was so hyped that she was going to be on the show the whole season.
Yeah.
And we got one episode.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I hope we get more Shirley MacLaine.
Yeah.
We did get a comment on Facebook about this Mary and what will happen to her character. I think we saw some foreshadowing for next year's season with all the conversation between Matthew and Mary about no one thinking she's a nice person. She is going to be evil next season.
Ooh.
So maybe we'll see.
Well, let's hear what some of our callers have to say. Cheryl from Warren, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hi, do you have a question or comment?
My comment is kind of away from the women's issues. You know how the men were coming together to get Downton Abbey financially sustainable and everything, and now with Matthew gone, I'm wondering what's going to happen with that. Is Downton Abbey stable? Have they fixed what they were going to fix? Will the father and the son-in-law take over where Matthew was finally getting his props for being so forward thinking.
And he had
so
lots
I'm
of
thinking
plans
financially in sustaining Downton Abbey.
Right.
And he had so many plans for Downton. I think you're right. And
so many.
Is that maybe Mary sort of fought him on that, but maybe Mary will be pulled into the mix a little bit now.
I don't think she was supporting him, though.
Right.
No, she wasn't.
She wasn't. But we did see, which I found interesting, was immediately when there was this stress, the women were kind of the pillars of strength around Lord Grantham, as everything was falling apart. Because of mistakes that he had made financially. But, Cora came and she was sticking to him. The Dowager and Mary were looking to try to get some money from Shirley MacLaine's character, Martha Levinson. So the women really were working hard to secure the finances.
Yeah. He spent the whole season in bewilderment, I think.
Right. Definitely.
The world's changing pretty fast around.
Definitely.
This is bewildering.
I know. Well, Cheryl, thank you for calling. We also have Carol from Williamsport. Welcome to After Abbey. Hi, Carol.
Hi. Very nice to be with you finally after all these other callers. I am a very latecomer.
Well, we love having your calls. And do you have a question or comment?
Well, I do. I am a senior. And not since the episodes of Upstairs, Downstairs in the 60s and 70s have I really enjoyed anything as much as I have the very few latter episodes that I was privileged to see. The beauty of and the wholesomeness and the intrigue and the true plot for a change. And it speaks so well to PBS and all there. And I compliment you. I am sorry, and so sorry, that I only came on board 8 weeks ago. And so I feel as though the marathon is my one hope.
There you go.
Well, good. The marathon on Sunday, March 10th. Plus, there's a lot more to come from Masterpiece. We're so excited. Rebecca,
I wonder how long has the series been on?
Well, Downton Abbey has been on. This is the 3rd season, and it's so easy to catch up because there are 6 episodes in the 1st season, 7 in the 2nd season, so it's very, very quick to catch up. But stay tuned on WPSU and PBS because we've got Mr. Selfridge coming up later, starting March 31st, and we're hearing amazing things about that one. So that's on Masterpiece, and that's supposed to be a really good one. So stay tuned for that.
I also have a question, if I may.
Yes, of course.
The name of the actress who plays, and I'm not really sure. I have seen her as a very young actress, and now I recognize the face, but of course can't get the name of the lady of the Abbey.
Of Cora?
Or
the
Maggie
mother,
Smith?
Of the mother of the girls.
That's Elizabeth McGovern.
Oh, my goodness. That is Robert McGovern's daughter.
And she was in Ordinary People? Yeah.
Yes. Well, yes, I remember. And I do thank you, and I say cheers and bravo to everyone.
Well, thank you so much for calling. We have Dolly from Rockton. Dolly, welcome to After Abbey.
Thanks.
And
I just wanted to say that I think that Edith will be coming into her own.
Yeah.
And I think eventually she's going to buy that newspaper. And I have to really thank Julian Fellows. He's terrific, and it reminds me of the days with the original Forsyth Saga when it was in black and white, and the Sharp series, which he's created, and everything he's done has just been terrific. So I hope she owns the newspaper.
That's great. It's a good suggestion.
Yeah, and that's about all I can think of.
Well, thank you so much for calling, Dolly. We also have Bernadette from State College. Welcome to After Abbey.
Hi. I have a question.
Okay.
I was wondering if anybody else got the impression from a comment that she had made at the Gilly Ball that O'Brien was going to try to ingratiate herself with Susan and Shrimpy and go to Bombay.
Yes.
Yeah, but then there was the falling out with their maid.
I think it was kind of their maid was feeling a little threatened.
Right. O'Brien did a much better job on Susan's hair. Let's talk. Her hair at the beginning of the episode was like, she looked like Bozo.
I think it's just funny. You never thought you'd see someone who would outstern O'Brien, and then there's this new maid. She doesn't even have the bangs. She's just got the severe bun and she's all frowns
and gray lips.
I know. But it was interesting to see, you know, we've had the O'Brien and Thomas feud this whole season, and now we had a little bit of another one.
Thomas actually became sympathetic too, which was very surprising.
That was such a great moment. Although we were debating, I don't know how realistic that would be for the time period. Both when he's sort of forgiven for his transgressions and the moment where Jimmy comes to him, and it's a beautiful moment, but. We were all kind of saying it's pretty progressive for that time.
Right.
Well, you know, the best line from that show for me was when Lord Grantham said, if I had screamed every time someone tried to kiss me at Eton, I'd be hoarse. And in fact, you know, the public schools, those are the very wealthy private schools, we would call them private schools, homosexuality was rampant in the schools. I mean, it was just a matter of fact that was how it was. And people sort of didn't do anything about it later in their lives, or they did pursue it, or lots of people lived closeted lives. I mean, it was a big open secret, and I kind of loved the portrayal of the downstairs folk who were just like, yeah, so what? You know, we know what he is. It's not his fault, and the fact that Carson is so appalled, but even he is kind of blowing smoke and says so.
There's been so much contrast on, and it's definitely a class issue again that we've been talking about. You know, not only with Thomas, we had, when you compare the indiscretions of Mary versus Ethel, and how with Mary with Mr. Permook, the Turkish ambassador, who
the late departed.
Yes, the late departed, and then Ethel, who, you know, the result was her son Charlie. She was fired and then was forced to become a prostitute.
And then you have Edna, who was fired just for trying to put the moves on Ranson.
We totally disproved that.
Yeah, we have to say none of us were sad to see her
We
go,
were very upset about this new Edna.
Oh yes, no.
We did not go. But you know, my point is that we've got, you know, just kind of a, oh, it's all right, Mary. It's all right. It's okay. You'll be fine. And
yeah, that was odd that the family was so unscandalized, I suppose, by that. But
that's again a class issue. Yeah.
Yes, it is very much. It's the insecure people in the middle classes who are much more, at least in the literary works of the time. The more insecure your class position is, the more you overreact to certain kinds of things. And of course, the homosexuality stuff is in the wake of the Oscar Wilde trials, which, you know, was a huge scandalous trial of the late 19th century, in which, Oscar Wilde was put on trial first for sedition and then for acts of sodomy, and that actually lit up something that people weren't really talking about at all, and so it polarized people around the issue of homosexuality. So you could get
taking that into gender. You were talking about the schools, and I'm assuming women would have been at these schools. So would it have been as acceptable for two women as it was for two men?
I think that, you know, there were some conventions, sexual conventions at the time. The Boston marriage, for example, was in the United States, women who lived together as a couple, but nobody, nobody thought salacious thoughts about that.
Right.
It was called a Boston marriage, when partners for life lived together, and they weren't necessarily flaunting a sexual relationship, but it was an alternative to a heterosexual marriage. So, there's something far less threatening to, particularly in England, where there's, you've got war going on, you've got this English ideal of the gentleman, and masculinity is constantly being contested anyway. So the flashpoint around male homosexuality was much lower than the flashpoint around lesbian relations.
Well, we've got a lot of calls in the queue, and it's great to see they're all representing a lot of different areas throughout our coverage area. So let's go to Doretta. Hi, Doretta. Do you have a comment or question?
Ladies. I just want to say, first of all, I absolutely love Downton Abbey. And in season 1 or 2, there was a badly burned man whose face and head were entirely covered with bandages, and he claimed he was a relative they thought that had drowned on the ship. But before it was proven that he indeed was that relative or heir, he left. Do you think he will return and try to take Downton Abbey?
Ooh, that is a very good question that we've had a lot of discussions about. I'm not sure. I feel like it's quite random that they would just bring him on and then we would never hear from him again. So.
But it is a soap opera, and that's what happens in soap operas.
Evil twins and that whole bit.
That's right. We've also got Stephen from Williamsport. Welcome to After Abbey.
Hello. Yeah, I became a fan this year of the show. And what I did, I went back on demand and watched the 2 years and got caught up. And I have to say I was upset about what happened with Matthew. And my first instincts was, as the lady said earlier, that I was done with the show. But after listening to y'all ladies, I realized there's a lot of different storylines that I'm still interested in. So I'll give the show, I'll tune in next season, give them at least a couple shows, see if they can catch my interest again.
Thank you.
Good. I hope we convinced. I'm glad we convinced you.
Yes.
Yeah, but I have a question. Like I said, because I became a fan this year and I got caught up in like 2 days. I'm not sure if this event happened this year or not, but when Lady Mary was caught with the Turkish ambassador, did she actually have relations with that guy?
Yes,
she did. A scandal that the fact he was in her room.
They had sex.
They did, yes.
He did.
Yes, and that's why I was just asking, Janet here about that situation, because she did that and Ethel did the same thing. Ethel the maid did the same thing.
Sort of threw herself at one of the soldiers.
Yes, with one of the soldiers, and had a son, Charlie, who we saw she gave up this season. But she suffered, the consequences were so much worse.
Right.
Well, probably because she had the son, maybe.
Yeah, getting pregnant was
she actually got fired
They covered that up pretty good.
I actually thought Lady Mary was going to get
I
pregnant.
got one more question about or comment about the show tonight. I think that, what's the guy's name?
Which one?
Oh, the homosexual guy that works down
Thomas.
Yeah, Thomas. I think he set that situation up underneath that bridge in order to get next to that guy because he likes him.
Yeah, oh yeah, he definitely likes him.
And I think he set that up. He was willing to take that beating. And, just to get a little close to him because now at least they friends.
Right.
And I think he's working on
Right.
him.
Right.
Okay, that's all I have to say. Thanks. I love your show.
Oh, thanks,
And
Stephen.
I will tune in next year.
Good man.
We'll be watching for you.
Thank you. Thanks for
welcome.
calling.
Bye-bye.
Bye. We have Margaret from Kane on the line. Welcome to After Abbey.
Thank you.
Do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, but back to the storyline. Everybody thinks Faith's wife committed suicide. She also had a relationship with the newspaper guy that Mary was engaged to. A little bit of blackmail or whatever. Possibly he might have had something to do with her death instead of her committing suicide, because I don't think she had that type of personality. Also, now that Matthew's in the car wreck, I wonder if the editor, newspaper guy, is going to come back into the show and start courting Mary again.
He better not.
No, he was no good at all.
He ever actually went through with this
about
threat
that.
to ruin her, because they never really discussed that, and they make it okay that he and Mary were, or Matthew and Mary were going to get married. But I wonder if he just gave up, or if he really went ahead and ruined things for her.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he had threatened to expose it
Right.
all, and she was going to go and spend time with her mother in America, which
Right.
didn't happen. So he might be on the scene yet in the future.
I forgot about
Yeah,
Mr. Carlisle.
He's the Rupert
Sir
Murdoch
Richard.
of the period.
Yeah. Richard Carlisle, that's right. I completely forgot about Richard Carlisle.
We have a very observant Twitter follower here who wonders if we recognize Susan, who is Shrimpy's wife, is Cordelia from Brideshead Revisited. Just a little fun fact for you there. Our
Interesting.
Twitter followers are always helping us out.
They are.
So,
We love to hear from them.
Yeah, definitely.
We do. Well, we have had so many calls tonight, and we've got more that we want to get to. But you know, if you're just joining us, this is After Abbey, the live post-Downton Abbey interactive talk show, and we invite your correspondence at 1-800-543-8242. Email us at afterabby@wpsu.org, and join us on Twitter at After Abbey. Send us a note on Facebook. Our fan page is facebook.com/AfterAbbeyTV, and we're going to continue this conversation after tonight, so keep tuning in. This show and Downton Abbey, I want to let you know, are supported by viewers like you. And we'll be back in just a minute, but first, here is our membership director, Pat Smith, one more time.
Thank you, Whitney. Patrick Smith here again with just a quick reminder that this is a fundraising weekend for WPSU. All of the gifts that we receive from our viewers this weekend help pay the costs for purchasing Masterpiece, whether it be Downton Abbey, the upcoming series Mr. Selfridge, which I know many of you are going to love, the new series of Sherlock, which will be coming later this year. All of those purchases come about because of your contributions. And of course, After Abbey is available, and we are able to produce it and broadcast it because of your contributions, because of viewers who take that very, very important step to say, this is important enough to me that I'm going to throw some financial support behind it. If you're new to PBS, maybe you've never participated before, well, we would love to have you come on board as a member. Maybe you've been a member in the past, but it's been a little while since you renewed that membership. Well, now would be an excellent time. And frankly, if you've been a member, but you just love Downton Abbey and you want to make sure that we're able to bring you each and every moment of Series 4 and maybe a Series 5, well, now is the time to call 1-800-245-9779 or make your gift online at wpsu.org. Masterpiece is a wonderful show, a great show, many, many great series, and many, many great hours of television to come through the remainder of this viewing year courtesy of Masterpiece. But it only happens with your support. That number again, 1-800-245-9779, online at wpsu.org. And now back to After Abbey.
You know, we want to remind you, too, we had a few callers who have called in and they've just started watching Downton Abbey and they need to get caught up. We want to let you know that be sure to tune in on Sunday, March 10th here on WPSU at noon, where we've got the whole Season 3 marathon. So don't miss that. I know we're getting a lot of action on Facebook and Twitter, so Jessica's checking over there. But let's go to Paul from Altoona. Paul, welcome to After Abbey.
Hey, how you doing?
Great. Do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I just want to know if we've established the fact that Edith's editor, his wife, is actually in an insane asylum.
Ooh.
He says so, but we don't have confirmation.
That's right. I didn't even think about that.
I wouldn't have picked up on that, no.
He looked
pretty. Because she's gotten, like, the screws put to her too many times. I feel bad for her. She needs a little, you know, bump up.
That's right.
Poor Edith.
That's what everyone says, poor Edith.
And did anybody notice that the newspaper, the editor, looks a lot like the guy who jilted her at the altar?
Sir Anthony.
Oh, my God.
It's like
She
they're
definitely
brothers or
has a
something.
type.
I know. Well, we have a few more calls I want to get to in just a few minutes left in the show. We really appreciate everyone who's been hanging on the phone lines and waiting to get through. Ken from Altoona, welcome to After Abbey. Do we have Ken? Hi, Ken.
Hello.
I think we. Hi, Ken. Do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I was just really curious about the gay theme. I mean, my partner and I just started watching because his parents and his nieces and nephews had started watching and really loved it and turned us on. And it's just interesting to see if that theme is going to continue on.
I think it definitely will.
Yeah,
It's carried over all the seasons so far.
Yeah, it has. It's
Yeah.
been throughout the whole series.
And if you find things online and interviews with Rob James Collier, the actor who portrays Thomas, I think you learn a little bit more about the backstory of Thomas and Rob's take on portraying Thomas. And it's pretty interesting if you can find articles out there about him. Maybe I'll find one and I'll tweet it. Then it'll go on our Facebook page as well for folks to check out.
That's right.
Yeah, no, I think
because he's a very sympathetic character.
he is, and he moved from being. I was a little disturbed in the earlier season when he was sort of demonized, and I was like, really? Does the gay character have to be the demonized character?
Right.
And then, and you know, I didn't realize that that was actually a setup for making him into a really very emotionally multidimensional character.
He's probably the most complex character on the show.
That's right.
So far.
It's been really nice to see. Well, thank you so much for calling, Ken. And thanks. We've got Carol and Marion also waiting to get through, who we've heard from before. And we've had a great discussion tonight. And I've been so excited to see all of the folks calling in and tweeting and also participating on Facebook. Thanks to our special guest, Janet Lyon, Penn State Associate Professor of English, Women's Studies, and Science, Technology, and Society. And thank you for watching. Please visit our website, wpsu.org/AfterAbbey and facebook.com/AfterAbbeyTV to continue this conversation. You can also email us. Our address is afterabbey@wpsu.org. You can find us on Twitter. The address is @AfterAbbey. And we are going to continue to be talking to everybody. You can relive the entire Season 3 of Downton Abbey right here on your local PBS station, WPSU, Sunday, March 10th, beginning at noon. And we want to give a special thanks to everyone who has joined us in conversation around Downton Abbey this entire season. Until we meet again, I'm Whitney Sheridan with my co-hosts Jessica Peters and Lindsay Whistle here. Thanks again to everyone, and we'll hope to see you next season. Cheers.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Eaton. Did you like Downton Abbey on Masterpiece?
Absolutely.
I bet you did. In fact, it was a hit, and not just in England, but thanks to public television supporters like you in America as well. And here's even better news. More episodes of Downton Abbey are in the works, and Masterpiece needs your help to bring them across the pond.
We should see more of each other.
I think it's romantic.
Please support this station right now. And in addition to helping us launch Downton Abbey's second season, you'll also help bring all new episodes of Upstairs, Downstairs to public television this spring. For 40 years, viewer support has played the most important role of all at Masterpiece. So please, be a star and make a gift in any amount. Thank you.